Welcome back, everybody. Let's talk poetry now. South Africa's ambassador to Zimbabwe, Vusi Mavimbela, will tomorrow launch his anthology of poems. The book, titled No Lullaby for My Country and Other Poems, is a modern-day odyssey that spans 4 decades of his probe into the meaning of life. It is also an incisive commentary, praise and critique that does not shy away from tackling conventional beliefs, no matter how conventional they might be. The ambassador joins us in studio now to tell us a little bit more about the book. It's so good to have you. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you, Leanne.
So while we were having a conversation, I asked you, has poetry always been something that you've loved? Have you always written poetry?
Yes, I think since I was very young at high school, I started developing the interest for poetry and the spoken word and written word in general.
Yeah, so it's I suppose something that have you been writing over the years that you've managed to compile this book?
I've been writing for almost 40 years now.
40 years?
Yes.
And this book could have been triple the size, I imagine.
Yes, absolutely.
How did you narrow down into which poems you actually wanted to publish?
I've got a lot of poetry lying around somewhere in my drawers and so on and so forth. But I just took a sample that covers really the whole period of the time I left the country in 1976 to the current period. So I had to sample a number of poems that cover that whole period.
The amazing thing is that some of your positions in government include a Director General for the National Intelligence, the DG in the Presidency. Currently you are the ambassador, the South African ambassador to Zimbabwe. Where do you find the time in and amongst all of this? Or is this your way of relaxing, writing poetry?
Well, I've got a passion for writing in general. I think I've written a number of articles for a number of newspapers here in South Africa and abroad. Of course, in the nature of being in government, there's a lot of writing also of documents and so on and so forth. So poetry is one of the passions that I do during my spare time.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing to do, to have that, to not lose focus of what your passion really is. Is it the first book that, I know you've done many articles, but is it your first book that you've actually published?
It's not exactly. You see, some of the poems here have been published in different books here and there. So I thought that I should bring them together. The majority of them have never been published, of these poems, but some of them have been published in different books over the decades.
Now, the poem No Lullaby for My Country, which you wrote in 1989, is the title of the book. So that's where you go, No Lullaby for My Country and Other Poems. Why in particular this poem? What is so special about this one that you decided to actually name the book after it?
In fact, in this book is about 100 pages of poetry. 50 pages is actually one poem. That is No Lullaby for My Country. Wow. Because it's kind of an epic. It covers many themes. And as you see that I wrote it in 1989. Yeah. So it is really the center of this book in terms of the variety of themes that it deals with.
That's amazing. So, I mean, I can see there's so many, well, yeah, 50 pages of this. But when I ask you what is one of your favorite poems in this book, you didn't mention that one. You mentioned Nelson Mandela, which you wrote in 2014. What is it about this poem?
The Nelson Mandela poem?
Yeah, Nelson Mandela.
Well, I wrote this poem immediately after Tata's funeral, his death. It's really to celebrate the man, to celebrate his achievement and his contribution. And in a way, really to celebrate the democracy in South Africa. Because it largely touches on the post-apartheid period of Mandela's time. His presidency, his death, his funeral, and the legacy that he has left, not only for South Africa, but for the world.
Yeah. Just to read one or two lines to viewers, because it's only fair to do so. Nelson Mandela was our Sigmund Freud, who dispatched all of us to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to sing the songs of atonement. We all wept wept many blood rivers that shall lie hidden under the lush greens, that shall forever feed the hope of our collective dream. Remember that we all wept. Desmond Tutu wept. The nation wept in broad daylight, tears as hot as molten zinc, a delirious purgatory fomented in swells of race and ideology. And it goes on and on and on. What a beautiful, I suppose it's every year signifies a different memory, a different event, a different happening in your life that you've, I suppose, traveled around. I mean, you've got poems written about taxi rides in Orlando and a whole bunch of things. Harvard University. I came here to see this campus to promote fortunes of my national liberation struggle. You spent time at Harvard?
No, not really. I was actually on tour in America, on a speaking tour. I spoke in many universities and tertiary institutions in America, promoting the cause of the liberation struggle in South Africa.
Yeah.
So that poem just touches on an incident that happened when I was addressing the students at Harvard University.
Yeah.
Really an extreme example of racism in America, which was displayed. So that poem tries and captures that.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. Now, you're launching this tomorrow. Where is it taking place? Talk to me about the event.
The launch is at Scoops Theatre of Books. That is in Monte Cassino. It's at 6:30 in the evening, 6:30 for 7 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah, and from then on, will it be available in bookstores around the country?
From then on, it is going to be available. In fact, tomorrow, when I launch the book at Scoops, the books will be available. So those who are coming to the launch will be able to buy the book.
Fantastic.
And hopefully get an autograph.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. And a signed copy
Yes.
of this book of poetry. A beautiful book of poetry, No Lullaby for My Country, and other poems. Vusi Mavimbela, who at this point in time is the South African ambassador to Zimbabwe, living there. He's here just to promote this book. And it's a fantastic book, I suppose, through Vusi's eyes, but also through our history and how the country has developed since then. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you here on the program, and I wish you the best of luck with this.
Thanks, Leanne.
Absolute
Thanks
pleasure.
to your viewers.
All right, let's take a break. We'll see you after this. Stay tuned.